Do you feel like money slips through your fingers without you even noticing where it goes? Well, you're experiencing what psychologists call mindless spending, and it's costing you more than you realize. You're going to be amazed when we tell you that the average person makes over 35,000 decisions per day, but only consciously considers about 5% of their spending choices. This means 95% of your money decisions happen on autopilot, often driven by marketing manipulation, social pressure, and emotional triggers, rather than your actual values and goals. Meanwhile, people who practice mindful spending report not only saving 30 to 50% more money, but also feeling significantly happier and more satisfied with their purchases. Here's what might surprise you. Mindful spending isn't about depriving yourself or obsessively tracking every penny. It's about developing awareness of your spending patterns and aligning your money choices with your deeper values and long-term goals. In fact, there's a specific framework based on mindfulness principles that can help you naturally reduce unnecessary expenses while increasing satisfaction with the money you do spend. And by the end of this video, we'll show you exactly how to implement 5 powerful mindful spending strategies that will transform your relationship with money forever. Make sure to stick around until the end because we'll give you a complete 30-day challenge that turns mindful spending into an automatic habit. So let's dive into the 5 mindful spending principles that will revolutionize how you think about and use money. Principle number 1, the pause and reflect practice. The first principle of mindful spending is creating space between the impulse to buy and the actual purchase through what we call the pause and reflect practice. This simple technique interrupts the automatic spending patterns that drain your finances without providing real value. Here's how it works. Before making any non-essential purchase, pause for at least 10 seconds and ask yourself 3 questions. First, why am I buying this right now? This helps you identify whether the purchase is driven by genuine need, emotional triggers, social pressure, or marketing manipulation. Second, how will I feel about this purchase tomorrow, next week, and next month? This connects you to the long-term consequences of the spending decision. Third, what else could I do with this money that might provide more lasting value? But the pause and reflect practice goes deeper than just avoiding impulse purchases. It's about developing what psychologists call metacognition, awareness of your own thinking patterns. Most people spend money while distracted, stressed, or emotional, which leads to decisions they later regret. Research shows that people who pause before purchases make dramatically different choices than those who buy impulsively. The pause activates the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for planning and decision-making, while reducing the influence of the limbic system that drives emotional and impulsive behavior. We recommend starting with purchases over $25 and gradually applying the practice to smaller amounts as it becomes habitual. You'll often discover that what seemed urgent or necessary in the moment becomes completely unimportant after a brief pause. The advanced version involves writing down your responses to the 3 questions. This physical act of writing further engages your conscious mind and creates a record you can review to understand your spending patterns better. Many people discover recurring themes. They spend money when stressed, bored, or trying to impress others, which allows for targeted behavioral changes. The key insight is that mindful spending isn't about saying no to everything. It's about making conscious choices rather than automatic ones. When you pause and reflect, you'll naturally spend less on things that don't align with your values while feeling more confident about purchases you do make. Principle number 2, values-based money alignment. The second principle involves consciously aligning your spending with your deeper values and priorities rather than letting external influences drive your financial decision. Most people spend money based on habit, advertising, or social expectations without considering whether those expenses support what they actually care about. Here's the framework. Identify your top 3 to 5 core values, then categorize your spending as either values aligned or values neutral or values opposing. Values aligned spending supports what matters most to you: health, family, personal growth, creativity, security, or whatever your priorities are. Values-neutral spending covers necessities that don't strongly connect to your values, but are required for daily life. Values-opposing spending contradicts your values or supports things you don't actually care about. For example, if one of your core values is health, then spending money on quality food, exercise equipment, or stress-reducing activities is values-aligned. Spending money on organic groceries, but then wasting half of them is values-neutral because it doesn't actually support health. Spending money on fast food when you're not hungry but just bored is values-opposing because it contradicts your health priority. But here's where this gets powerful. When you align spending with values, you naturally want to spend less on things that don't matter and more on things that do. This isn't deprivation, it's optimization. You're not cutting expenses randomly. You're reallocating money toward what brings genuine satisfaction and meaning. The psychological research on this is clear. People who align their spending with their values report higher life satisfaction, less financial stress, and better relationships. They also tend to save more money because they're not trying to fill emotional needs through purchases that don't actually address those needs. We recommend doing a values audit monthly for the first 3 months. Review your spending from the previous month and honestly assess how well it aligned with your stated priorities. You'll often discover surprising disconnects. People who say they value family spending more on individual entertainment than family activities, or people who claim to prioritize financial security, spending heavily on status purchases. The key is making this alignment conscious and intentional, rather than hoping it happens automatically. When you consistently spend in ways that support your values, money becomes a tool for creating the life you actually want, rather than a source of stress and conflict. Principle number 3, the gratitude before purchase technique. The third principle leverages gratitude to naturally reduce unnecessary spending while increasing satisfaction with what you already own. This technique addresses one of the root causes of mindless spending, the constant feeling that what you have isn't enough. Here's the practice. Before making any discretionary purchase, spend 2 to 3 minutes actively appreciating something you already own that's similar to, or serves a similar purpose as the item you want to buy. If you want new clothes, appreciate clothing you already have. If you want new electronics, appreciate the devices that already serve you well. If you want home decorations, appreciate the items that already make your space pleasant. This isn't just positive thinking, it's based on solid psychological research. Gratitude practices have been shown to increase life satisfaction, reduce materialism, and improve financial decision-making. When you appreciate what you have, the urge to acquire more naturally diminishes because you feel abundant rather than lacking. But the technique goes beyond just feeling grateful. It also helps you recognize when you already own items that meet your needs, reducing duplicate purchases and encouraging you to use things you already have more fully. Many people buy new items when they already own similar things that are underutilized or forgotten. We recommend keeping a gratitude inventory, a running list of possessions you truly appreciate and use regularly. Review this list when you feel the urge to make lifestyle purchases. You'll often find that you already own items that provide the function or satisfaction you're seeking through new purchases. The advanced version involves calculating the cost per use of items you already own and appreciate. When you realize that a jacket you bought 3 years ago for $150 has been worn 100 times, that's $1.50 per use and tremendous value. This appreciation makes you less likely to buy additional jackets impulsively and more likely to care for and use what you have. Here's the wealth building connection. People who regularly practice gratitude before purchases typically reduce discretionary spending by 20 to 40% while reporting higher satisfaction with their possessions. That money can be redirected towards savings and investments, creating compound wealth growth over time. The psychological benefit is equally important. Gratitude practices reduce the anxiety and dissatisfaction that drive much compulsive spending, creating a more peaceful and content relationship with money and possessions. Principle number 4, conscious consumption and quality focus. The fourth principle involves making deliberate choices about when, how, and what you consume, rather than defaulting to convenience or habit-driven purchases. This principle addresses the difference between consuming mindfully and consuming reactively. Conscious consumption starts with understanding the true cost of purchases beyond just the price tag. Every purchase involves opportunity costs. What else could you do with that money? Time costs, research, shopping, maintenance, storage, and attention costs, mental energy spent on acquisition, organization, and care. Here's our systematic approach. Before making purchases, especially recurring ones like food, entertainment, or household items, pause to consider alternatives that might provide similar satisfaction with lower total costs. This might mean cooking at home instead of ordering takeout, borrowing books from the library instead of buying them, or repairing items instead of replacing them. But conscious consumption isn't about always choosing the cheapest option. It's about choosing options that provide the best overall value when you consider quality, durability, satisfaction, and total cost of ownership. Sometimes this means spending more upfront for items that last longer, perform better, or provide greater satisfaction. The quality focus aspect involves researching purchases thoroughly, reading reviews from long-term users, and considering how long you expect to use items before buying them. This prevents low-quality purchases that need frequent replacement and reduces the clutter and waste that come from buying items that don't meet your needs. We recommend the sleep on it rule for any purchase over $100. Wait at least 24 hours and do additional research before buying. Use this time to compare alternatives, read reviews, and consider whether the purchase truly supports your goals and values. Advanced practitioners also consider the broader impact of their consumption choices, environmental costs, labor practices, local economic effects, as part of their decision-making process. This expanded awareness often leads to more thoughtful choices that align with personal values, while often saving money. The key insight is that conscious consumption typically leads to buying fewer items of higher quality, which reduces total spending while increasing satisfaction. You end up with possessions that serve you better and last longer, reducing the need for frequent replacement purchases. Principle number 5, the future self visualization method. The fifth principle uses visualization techniques to connect present spending decisions with future consequences, helping you make choices that serve your long-term interests rather than just immediate desires. Here's the technique. Before making significant purchases or when tempted by lifestyle inflation, take a few minutes to vividly imagine your future self in 5, 10, or 20 years. Visualize what that future person might want, need, or regret about your current spending choices. Ask yourself, will my future self thank me for this purchase or wish I had made a different choice with this money? This technique is powerful because our brains are naturally biased toward immediate gratification at the expense of long-term benefits. The future feels abstract and distant, while present desires feel urgent and real. Visualization makes the future more concrete and emotionally relevant to current decisions. But we take this further with specific financial scenarios. When considering a purchase, calculate what that money could become if invested instead. A $200 impulse purchase invested at 7% annual returns becomes $400 in 10 years, $800 in 20 years, and $1,600 in 30 years. Visualizing your future self with that additional wealth makes the opportunity cost of spending more tangible. The advanced version involves creating a detailed vision of your ideal future lifestyle, and then working backwards to understand what spending and saving choices support that vision. If you want to retire early, travel extensively, own a home, or pursue creative projects. What spending patterns today make those goals more likely? We recommend doing this visualization exercise monthly, especially when facing major spending decisions, or when you notice spending creeping up in certain categories. Write down your insights to make them more concrete and reviewable. Research shows that people who regularly consider their future selves make better financial decisions, save more money, and report less regret about past purchases. The visualization creates emotional connection to abstract future benefits, making them feel more real and motivating. The key is making this practice specific and personal rather than generic. Your future self has particular dreams, concerns, and needs that current spending choices either support or undermine. When you make this connection vivid and real, mindful spending becomes natural rather than forced. Your 30-day mindful spending challenge. Let's wrap this up with a specific 30-day challenge that helps you integrate these 5 principles into automatic habits. Week 1, foundation building. Implement the pause and reflect practice for all purchases over $25. Identify your top 5 core values and begin noticing how your spending aligns with them. Start a simple spending journal, noting not just what you buy, but why you bought it and how you felt about it later. Week 2, gratitude and consciousness. Practice gratitude before purchase for all discretionary spending. Research one significant purchase you've been considering and apply the conscious consumption framework. Begin calculating cost per use for items you frequently use to appreciate their value. Week 3, values and vision. Conduct your first values audit, categorizing the previous week's spending as aligned, neutral, or opposing your core value. Practice future self-visualization before any purchase over $50. Create a written vision of your ideal life 10 years from now. Week 4, integration and optimization. Combine all 5 principles into a unified approach to spending decisions. Review your spending journal to identify patterns and triggers. Calculate money saved through mindful spending, and set up automatic investment transfers for those savings. Most people who complete this 30-day challenge report saving 25 to 40% on discretionary purchases while feeling more satisfied with the purchases they do make. They also develop greater awareness of their spending triggers and values, leading to better financial decisions long term. The key insight is that mindful spending isn't about restriction. It's about consciousness and alignment. When you spend mindfully, you naturally spend less on things that don't matter and invest more in things that do, creating both immediate satisfaction and long-term wealth. Remember, the goal isn't to become extremely frugal or to second-guess every small purchase. The goal is to develop awareness and intentionality around money decision so that your spending supports your values and goals rather than working against them. Mindful spending is a skill that improves with practice. Start with whichever principle feels most natural to you, but don't underestimate the compound effect of implementing all 5 approaches systematically. Your relationship with money will become more peaceful, purposeful, and aligned with what truly matters to you. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more practical financial advice. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, mindful spending isn't about having less. It's about being more conscious of how money can serve your highest priorities and deepest values. Start your 30-day challenge today and transform your spending into a tool for creating the life you truly want. See you in the next video.